Welcome back to Life After Service, where I help veterans find purpose and meaning after leaving the military. And today I'll be talking about mistakes to avoid when you start that transition from military to the civilian world.
On track, now we gon' way up. Don't be used as easy as a layup. Working late, stay up, stay up.
So there are a ton of mistakes that people make when they move from the military out to the civilian world. I'm going to touch on just the top three that I've experienced in my own transition. And if you guys have other ones, just comment below what they are, and we'll try and find some ways that we can help work through those and overcome those obstacles. So a little bit about my backstory as I got out. So I left the Army in 2012, and I didn't really have a huge plan as I got out. My kind of end all be all was that I was gonna get out of the military. I would put in for a few contract jobs. I'd get one of those contract jobs, and then boom, that was it. And what ended up happening was got out, kind of got lazy for like 4 or 5 months. Really did nothing. I put a few applications in with the some of the contracting companies, but at the time they were going through one of the drawdowns, so those contracts the spots for them were almost non-existent, and so obviously my plan didn't work out for that. So what I did instead was I sat on the couch and I played Call of Duty pretty much every day, really not having a lot of motivation or purpose during that time. And that's what I want to kind of help you guys avoid in your own process as you enter the civilian world. So let's talk about some of the mistakes specifically that I made. Number one was not having any mission or purpose. And what I mean by this is every day you should have some type of goal or objective that you're working on. So it could be putting in 3 applications for the day. It could be updating your resume. Whatever it is, you need to have some type of mission and purpose, not just macro, on the overall scale of things. You need to have something that you need to be working on daily, because if you don't have that daily thing, it's easy to get complacent. And the next thing you know, you end up in a position like I was, where 4 or 5 months down the road, you're in the exact same spot to where you started. So number one, make sure you have mission, purpose, and a set of goals that you can achieve every day. Mistake number two that I made was having altered expectations of what would happen. So what I mean particularly with this is when it comes to putting in jobs, putting your applications in. And I thought that, when I went from the military to a civilian, I didn't know how long that process would take when it came to jobs and stuff like that, how quickly you would hear back from employers. And so I would put in for a job with the expectation that a week or so later, I would have a job offer. I didn't realize that these things take a lot more time than I was anticipating. And so, it might take you 1 or 2 months to put in an application and then eventually hear back from that employer, possibly even longer to go through the hiring process if you're selected for it. But understand that these things take time, and the way to overcome that is to start putting in those applications while you're still in the military. So a good time for that would be during that transition process, or if you have terminal leave that you're going to be taking at the end, right at the start of that terminal, or even before, is when you want to be putting in those applications, because it's going to take time for the employer to review the applications, look at all the different applicants that are applying for the job, interviewing the top few, and then making a selection. And again, that's going to take possibly multiple weeks or months depending on what the job is and what the company is. So don't go into the civilian world with the expectation that you're immediately going to have a job. You need to plan for this in advance, and you need to give yourself that time so that if you are looking to move into a job directly out of the military, that you plan for it beforehand and you're putting in for those, months down the road before you're actually in that seat to where you're a civilian now. All right, mistake number 3 has to do with the resume. So that in the military there's a lot of acronyms and jargon that we use. In the civilian world, if you put that stuff on a resume, they're probably not going to understand what it is. Even if they're a prior service, there's a lot of ones that are specific to certain, career fields or different branches. And even if they were in the military before, they may still not understand exactly what that is. And so what you want to do is you want to avoid any slang or any jargon, any acronyms. Take all of those things and turn them into something that the recruiter or the hiring manager is going to be able to understand. So basically put it in civilian terms and break it down to where it's so simplified that anyone that can view that resume is going to understand exactly what your job roles were, and what your duties and what it encompassed. So those are the top three. Again, make sure you have mission and purpose every day. Set daily goals to work towards. Number 2, be cognizant of the altered expectations that you might have when it comes to putting in for the job and the amount of time that it might take from when you put it in to when you actually hear back from them and then go through the onboarding process if you are hired. And then finally, number 3, make sure that you take a look at your resume and ensure that there's no slang, jargon, or acronyms on it. You want it in clear, simple text so that anyone that can read it can understand what you did and how you did it. So there you have it. Again, if there are any obstacles or challenges that you foresee or that you've experienced during your own process of going into the civilian world, comment below. Let me hear.